My twin brother hadn't called me in 8 years, so when his name lit up my phone at 11:47 p.m., I nearly let it die in silence. Something stopped me. I answered and heard him breaking, "Please, save me." His own son had locked him in a shed for 4 years. No heat, no freedom, no dignity. Treated like livestock instead of blood. They thought he was too weak to resist, thought no one was coming. They miscalculated. When I got there, I didn't knock. I didn't warn them. I ended it. I'm truly grateful you're here with me. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. If this story resonates with you, consider subscribing so you don't miss what's coming next. Also, please note some parts of this story are dramatized for entertainment and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real names or places is purely coincidental, but the message behind it is sincere and meaningful. The phone rang at 11:47 on a Thursday night in early May. I was halfway through a bourbon and a paperback western when the screen lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Tennessee area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. 8 years had a way of turning blood into distance. Something stopped me. I answered. Silence. Then breathing thin, uneven, the kind of breathing a man makes when he's trying not to be heard. Hello, a whisper, barely alive. Gideon. I went still. The voice hit me like cold water, familiar in a way that tightened my chest. Familiar the way your own reflection is familiar after you've avoided mirrors for too long. Who is this? It's me. A pause. A shaky inhale. It's Caleb, my twin, my other half. 8 years since I'd heard him speak. 8 years since Ruth's funeral. 8 years since I told him his son was poison, and he told me to get out and never come back. I set the glass down carefully. Caleb. Where are you? In a shed. Behind the house. His voice fractured. Zachary locked me in here. 4 years now. The words didn't register at first. 4 years. He says I'm confused. Says I wander. Says it's for my own safety. A bitter, broken laugh. It's not. He's going to finish me off, Gideon. 1 week after the party, May 15th. I heard him talking. I heard slow down. What party anniversary? His and Vanessa's. He's making me sign papers. The land. Everything. If I don't meddle, scraped in the background, a faint grinding against concrete. I don't have much time. The phone's almost dead. Emma gave it to me. She's 9. She who's Emma, my granddaughter. She's the only one who still, his breath hitched. Zachary took everything, Gideon. My phone. My computer. He changed the house number. Told the neighbors I wanted privacy. I couldn't reach you. For 8 years I tried. He made sure I couldn't. And now the rest dissolved into quiet sobbing. Not loud, not dramatic, just the exhausted sound of a man who had run out of strength years ago and kept going anyway. I stood up. The bourbon was forgotten. The book slid off my lap and hit the floor. Listen to me, I said. My voice was steady the way it had been for decades when clients were spiraling and needed someone anchored. Don't sign anything. Do you hear me? Nothing. No matter what he says. He'll hurt me. I know. He already does. The admission hung between us. I'm coming, I said. 2 days. Can you hold on for 2 days? I don't know if... Yes, you can. I moved toward the window, staring at the dark river beyond the glass. There's a chevron off I-40. Exit 247. You know it. A pause. I think so. 4:30 in the morning, May 6th. 2 days from now. Meet me there. Can you get out? I don't know how. You got out tonight. Zachary forgot to lock the door. He was drunk. He'll forget again. 4:30. Exit 247. I'll be there. He went quiet. Then softer, Gideon. I'm scared. 64 years old, and he sounded like the kid who used to hide behind me when dogs barked too loud. The quiet one. The thoughtful one. The one who believed the best in people, even when he shouldn't. I know you are, I said, but I'm not letting him finish this. You hear me? I'm not letting him take you. It's been so long, he whispered. I didn't think I'm your brother. That doesn't expire. Silence again. Then unexpectedly, Ruth died. Did you know I know? I was there. You were back row. I left before the reception. The confession tasted old and bitter. I didn't think you'd want to see me. You told me Zachary would destroy me, Caleb said. You were right. We'll fix it. There's so much money, he murmured. The land. $6 million. He found out about the highway project and footsteps. Heavy. Getting closer. Caleb's breathing stopped. Caleb, he's coming. I have to go. Exit 247. 4:30. Don't forget. I won't. The line went dead. I stood in my living room in Bend, Oregon, holding a silent phone and staring at my reflection in the black window. Outside, the Deschutes River moved under starlight, calm and indifferent. Inside, my hands were shaking. 8 years. 8 years since I walked away because he wouldn't listen. 8 years since he chose Zachary over me. 8 years of telling myself that if he ever needed me, he'd call. He finally had. And it had taken a 9-year-old girl sneaking him a phone. I looked at the clock. 11:51, 2 days, 1,700 miles. I could make it if I didn't stop. I walked into the bedroom, opened the closet, and pulled down the black duffel bag from the top shelf. I hadn't touched it in 3 years. 40 years as a private investigator had taught me to keep a go-bag ready. Some habits don't retire. I set it on the bed and unzipped it. Button camera, voice recorder, lockpicks, USB drives, a Glock 19 wrapped in cloth. $10,000 in cash. Enough to disappear or persuade depending on what the situation required. I'd told myself I was done with this life. Apparently not. From the dresser, I pulled the old file I kept buried under tax returns. Photos, newspaper clippings. Copies of our birth certificates, Caleb Redford and Gideon Redford, born 11 minutes apart, in a VA hospital in Memphis in 1961. I picked up one photograph. 2 boys 7 years old grinning into the sun, arms slung over each other's shoulders. The only difference between us was the thin scar above my left eyebrow from a baseball gone wrong. Caleb kept me out of fights. I kept him out of his own head. That had always been the deal. I placed the photo back in the folder and packed the bag with methodical precision. Extra batteries, phone charger, road atlas. I didn't trust GPS when the exit needed to be clean. In the kitchen, I brewed coffee strong enough to burn through fatigue and poured it into a thermos. The house felt smaller than it had an hour ago. 11:58. I stood at the front door, hand on the knob, and replayed the last thing Caleb said. You were right. Maybe I was. It didn't matter. He was my brother. He called. That was enough. I locked the door behind me, tossed the duffel into the back of my truck, and started the engine. The headlights cut across the driveway and out onto the empty road. East. The highway opened up in front of me, dark, quiet, waiting. I had 2 days to reach Tennessee, 2 days to extract my brother from a shed he'd been locked in for 4 years. 2 days to step back into a life I thought I'd left behind. And when I got there, I wasn't going to knock. First, I was going to pull Caleb out of hell. Then I was going to deal with Zachary. The Chevron station sat alone at the edge of nothing, an island of fluorescent light floating in pre-dawn darkness. 2 pumps. A convenience store with metal bars over the windows. A rusted picnic table that looked like it hadn't been painted since the 90s. I eased the Silverado into the far corner of the lot and backed it in so I could watch the road. Old habit. Always know your exits. 4:27 a.m. 3 minutes to the meet. I unscrewed the thermos and poured what was left into the lid. The coffee had gone cold. Bitter. I drank it anyway. My eyes burned from 30 hours behind the wheel, but exhaustion hadn't caught me. Adrenaline had taken over somewhere around the Arkansas border and hadn't loosened its grip since. The highway beyond the lot was silent. No headlights, no movement. Just darkness and the faint hum of insects. Then I saw him. A shape at the edge of the parking lot. Moving slow, uneven, limping. Caleb. He looked less like a man and more like something pulled out of a grave. He'd lost weight, 40 pounds at least. The flannel shirt hung off him like borrowed clothing, one shoulder torn, jeans stiff with dirt and grime. No shoes. His feet were raw and torn open, streaks of blood marking the asphalt behind him like breadcrumbs. His face was worse. Hollow cheeks, beard grown wild and uneven, skin pale under a layer of dust. His eyes sat deep in their sockets, shadowed. But I knew those eyes. I saw them every morning when I shaved. He stopped 10 feet away. Giddy and I crossed the distance in 3 strides and pulled him into me. He didn't resist. He collapsed. His entire body trembled, shaking so hard I could feel bone through fabric. His ribs pressed sharp against my chest. "I got you," I said. It was the only thing that mattered. I led him to the picnic table, sat him down carefully, pulled a bottle of water and a sandwich from the truck. He drained half the water in one breath, choking and gasping as if he'd forgotten how to swallow slowly. Then he tore into the sandwich with the desperation of someone who hadn't eaten properly in days. Maybe he hadn't. I knelt in front of him and took his foot gently into my hands. The cuts were shallow but filthy. Gravel embedded in skin. I cleaned them with bottled water and antiseptic wipes, then wrapped them in gauze from my kit. His hands shook so badly he could barely hold the bread. How far, I asked. 3 miles, maybe 4. He swallowed hard. Zachary passed out around 2. Drunk. Forgot the lock. I waited until I heard him snoring, then I ran. You did good. He let out a weak breath that might have been a laugh. I didn't think you'd come. He looked up at me, tears carved lines through the dirt on his cheeks. 8 years, Gideon. I'm your brother. That doesn't stop. That was all it took. He broke. Full sobs now, deep ugly ones that seemed to come from a place buried under years of silence. I let him cry. Didn't rush it. Didn't interrupt. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let a man empty himself. When the storm passed, he sat straighter, still shaking, but clearer. You were right, he said quietly. 8 years ago, at Ruth's funeral. You told me Zachary would destroy me. I didn't believe you. His fingers tightened around the empty water bottle. The week after the funeral, he took my phone. Said the bill was too high, said he'd handle it. Then he changed the house number. Took over my email, told everyone I needed privacy. I thought he was helping. His jaw clenched. By the time I understood what he was doing, I couldn't reach anyone. He isolated you, I said. Completely. His voice hardened, not with strength, but with clarity. He had me sign a power of attorney. Said I wasn't thinking straight after Ruth died. Said it was temporary. After that, he had everything. My pension, $2,400 a month. Social Security, $1,850. Every month for 8 years. He let out a hollow laugh. Zachary bought a new truck. Vanessa got a diamond ring. Lorraine moved in. They all lived off me while I... His words faded. 4 years ago, he moved me to the shed. Said I was wandering. Said I scared Emma. Put an electronic lock on the door. I couldn't leave. His voice cracked again. I kept my face still. How'd you get the phone, Emma? For the first time, something softened in his expression. She's 9 now. Zachary's daughter. She saw him hurt me one night. Really hurt me. His hands trembled again. A few days later, she came out to the shed. Gave me an old phone her aunt didn't use. No service, but it connected to the house Wi-Fi. She gave me the password. He swallowed. I waited. I listened. Heard Zachary talking about the anniversary party, May 15th. Heard him say if I didn't sign the land over, he'd finish me off a week later. That's when I called you. First time in 8 years you had access to a phone. First time I could reach you. He met my eyes. You're the only one I could think of. The only one who'd come. I'm here, I said. And we're ending this. I told him the plan. We'd switch places. I'd go back as him, stay in the shed, record everything, gather financial documents, capture conversations, let Zachary think he still had control. Caleb would disappear. Knoxville, Riverside Inn, room already booked. He'd rest, regain weight, regain strength. When I had enough evidence to bury Zachary, I'd bring the police in, blow the entire thing open. Caleb stared at me like I'd suggested something impossible. You're going to pretend to be me, we're identical, I said. No one's studied your face in years. Zachary hasn't looked at you closely in 4. He sees what he wants to see. He'll notice. He thinks you're broken. He thinks you're beaten. He thinks he's already won. I held his gaze. Men like Zachary stop paying attention once they think the fight's over. Caleb hesitated, then slowly nodded. I called an Uber Black, paid extra for silence. The driver arrived 20 minutes later, middle-aged, steady hands, eyes that knew better than to ask questions. My brother's been sick, I told him, handing over $200 in cash. Take him to the Riverside Inn in Knoxville. Room 412. Make sure he gets inside. The driver nodded. I handed Caleb $5,000 in folded bills and the room key. Then I pulled the photograph from my pocket. 2 boys at 7 years old, arms around each other, gap-toothed grins. Give this to Emma, I said. Tell her Uncle Gideon's here. He studied the photo for a long moment. You were always the brave one, he said quietly. No, I replied. You survived 4 years in a cage. That's braver than anything I've done. He squeezed my hand hard, then let go. The Uber pulled out, taillights shrinking into darkness. I watched until they vanished. Then I turned back to the picnic table. I stripped off my jacket, shirt, jeans, slid into Caleb's clothes. The flannel stank of mildew and sweat. The denim hung loose. I rubbed dirt across my face, slouched my shoulders, slowed my breathing. In the early gray light, I could pass. I climbed into the driver's seat and checked the rearview mirror. Caleb stared back at me. The sun edged over the horizon, orange bleeding into the fields. I shifted into drive, headed toward Millbrook, toward Zachary, toward a shed with an electronic lock. I wasn't Caleb Redford anymore, but for the next week, Zachary would believe I was. And that belief was all the weapon I needed. The house at 342 Oakwood Drive looked worse than I'd prepared myself for. 2 stories, white paint peeling in long, curling strips like shedding skin, black shutters hanging crooked, one barely attached by a single rusted hinge. The front lawn was waist-high in weeds, beer cans glittering in the early light like metal weeds of their own. Near the mailbox, a rusted metal sign leaned sideways, Redford Family Home. Established 1952. Caleb's house. The house he and Ruth had bought 40 years ago. The house where he raised Linda and Zachary. The house that should have been memory and safety and quiet evenings on the porch. Now it was decay. I parked the battered Silverado in the driveway and kept my hands on the wheel for a moment longer than necessary. I let the silence settle. Let the roll settle. I wasn't Gideon Redford, retired private investigator from Bend, Oregon. I was Caleb Redford, 64, grieving widower, diminished, contained. I stepped out of the truck, pulled my cap low, and walked toward the front door. The flannel clung to my skin, sour with sweat and mildew. My stomach tightened, but I let my shoulders sag, let my steps drag slightly, broken. That was what Zachary expected to see. I knocked once. No answer. I tried the handle. Unlocked. The air inside hit me first, stale, smoke, old grease, sour garbage. The living room was chaos. Empty pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table. Soda cans tipped over. A flat screen mounted on the wall, blaring a morning talk show too loud for the hour. The furniture had once been good quality, solid wood floral upholstery Ruth would have picked carefully. Now it sagged and stained under years of neglect. I moved further in and stopped at the mantel. A framed photo sat there. Zachary, clean-cut, maybe 30, standing beside Vanessa. Both smiling. Vanessa holding a baby wrapped in a pink blanket. Dark hair. Wide, curious eyes. Emma. The photo was dated April 2017, 8 years ago. March 2017. Ruth dead from cancer. Zachary calling Caleb saying he and Vanessa needed help. A newborn baby. A grieving widower. "We'll take care of you, Dad." Caleb believed him. He always believed Zachary. Within weeks, the phone was gone. The house number changed. The email passwords reset. The circle tightened. And that baby in the photo, innocent, helpless, was 9 years old now, raised inside a house thick with manipulation and cruelty. Yet she had still found the courage to slip her grandfather a phone. "Where the hell have you been?" I turned slowly. Zachary stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed over his chest. He'd ballooned since I'd last seen him. Pushing 300 pounds, sweat darkening the collar of a stained gray t-shirt, sweatpants sagging, hair thinning, jaw soft. The man in the photograph was gone. I didn't answer. I let my eyes drop slightly, let my mouth hang open a fraction. "I asked you something," he snapped, stepping closer. "Where were you?" "Walked," I muttered, rasping my voice, keeping it dry and thin. "Walked where just walked." He stared at me, searching. For a second I felt his suspicion brush against me like static. Then he scoffed. "You're losing it," he said. You know that behind him Vanessa appeared, bottle blonde hair pulled tight, red acrylic nails tapping against her phone, cheap silk blouse stretched across her frame. She wrinkled her nose. "God, he smells," she said. "Don't let him in the house like that." An older woman stepped in behind her, Lorraine, Vanessa's mother. Gray hair scraped back, lips thin and sharp, eyes colder than the morning air. "You owe us $500, she said flatly. "Rent for last month." Rent in his own house. I blinked slowly, the way Caleb would, confused, small. Jessica drifted in, next Vanessa's younger sister. Bleached hair, phone glued to her hand. Barely 28. She glanced at me and smirked. "Can't believe the old man's still alive," she muttered. Then I heard it. Soft footsteps on the stairs. Emma. She stood on the bottom step, clutching the railing with both hands. Brown hair and a messy ponytail. Faded dress too short at the ankles. Blue eyes wide and watchful. She didn't speak. But when she saw me, there was a flicker. Recognition. Hope. It lasted less than a second. Zachary grabbed my arm. "Come on," he said. "You're not staying in here." He pulled me through the kitchen, past trash bags piled by the door, past a sink overflowing with dirty dishes, out the back door and into the yard. The grass was knee-high. Broken lawn chairs lay scattered like casualties. Rusted tools half buried in dirt. At the edge of the property sat the shed. 8 feet by 10 feet. Wood siding weathered gray. Small window covered from the inside with a dark tarp. Zachary pulled his phone from his pocket and tapped a code. A soft mechanical click echoed. Electronic lock. He shoved the door open. "This is where you live," he said casually. "You don't come in the house unless I say so. You don't talk to anyone. You stay here. Understand?" I looked inside. Thin mattress on the floor, stained and collapsed in the center. A single plastic water bottle. No toilet. No sink. One bare bulb hanging from a cord overhead. In the corner near the floor, a small ventilation opening covered with an oily rag. My jaw tightened, but I let my expression stay dull. "Understand," Zachary barked. I nodded once. "If you try to leave again," he added, "I'll lock you in for a week. No water." "Got it." I nodded again. Satisfied, he stepped back and walked toward the house, muttering under his breath. The door remained open. For now. I stepped inside. The air was thick and stale, metallic. I crouched near the ventilation hole and pulled the rag aside carefully. A faint chemical odor drifted out. Propane. Maybe carbon monoxide. I moved my eyes slowly across the interior, noticing details without appearing to. Then I saw it. Outside the shed, mounted against the house wall, the water heater. The exhaust pipe angled wrong. Loose connection. Gases venting sideways toward the shed. Deliberate. The rag stuffed in the vent wasn't neglect. It was containment. The air inside this box had been poisoned on purpose. I angled my body slightly and pressed the button hidden in my shirt collar. The camera embedded there snapped images, ventilation hole, blocked airflow, exhaust pipe, electronic lock, keypad. 72 hours of battery life. I would need every minute. I sat down on the mattress. The springs beneath it groaned. Dust rose in faint clouds. 4 years. 4 years my brother had slept here. Breathing slow poison. Drinking rationed water. Listening to footsteps outside that never came to rescue him. This wasn't just financial exploitation. This was elimination. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the image Caleb had handed me at the gas station earlier that morning. 2 boys, 7 years old, fishing poles too big for our hands. Our father standing behind us, proud and tired. Caleb smiling wide. Me squinting into the sun. I let the memory anchor me. Hold on, Caleb. You survived this. Now it's my turn. I leaned back against the wall, careful not to disturb the camera angle. Slowed my breathing. Counted seconds between inhalations to measure the air quality. If Zachary thought he'd already won, he'd get careless. He believed Caleb was broken. He believed no one was watching. He believed the shed was just a waiting room before the final step. He was wrong. For the next week, I would be Caleb Redford. Weak, silent, defeated. And every word Zachary spoke, every transaction, every threat, I would capture it. Because before I could end this, I had to survive it. Darkness fell without warning. One moment the shed was dim gray light leaking through the edges of the tarp. The next, it was absolute, a heavy, suffocating black that erased the walls, the floor, even my own hands. The kind of darkness that makes you doubt your sense of space. The kind that presses in. I lay on the thin mattress and listened. Rats moved inside the walls, small claws scratching through hollow wood. Something heavier rustled through the grass outside. Possum, maybe. Stray cat. The house creaked as it cooled. Through an open window somewhere above, I could hear Vanessa laughing. Zachary's voice boomed over the television, sharp and impatient. Caleb had endured this for 4 years. 1,400 nights. Alone. Inhaling poison. Listening to his own son's voice drift through the dark, while he lay on a stained mattress like discarded furniture. I reached up, fingers brushing the wood above my head. Emma's sunshine. The letters were shallow but deliberate, carved slowly, patiently. A child's name turned into a lifeline. A 9-year-old girl had kept my brother alive. Not food, not strength, not faith in himself. Just the knowledge that somewhere in that house, someone still saw him as human. I sat up and carefully detached the button camera from my collar. Powered it down, saved the battery. I would need it later when Zachary got careless, when conversations turned incriminating. The air felt thicker at night. The chemical tang sharpened. Sour, metallic. I could taste it in the back of my throat. I stood and moved slowly toward the vent in the corner, tracing the wall with my fingertips. I pulled another rag loose. The smell hit harder. Propane. Not accidental. Not incidental. I leaned close and listened. A faint hiss. Steady. Controlled. Like a gas line opened just enough to leak, but not enough to alarm. Not enough to explode. Just enough to fill a sealed box over time. Make a man dizzy, nauseous, weak. Let him deteriorate quietly until one morning he simply didn't wake up, and Zachary would act surprised. Call 911, cry, bury his father, collect everything. Clean, plausible, unquestioned. I reactivated the camera flash, low but functional, photographed the vent, the rags stuffed tight into the opening, the metal grate, the electronic keypad on the door, the serial number stamped into the steel plate. Mitchell Warren would know what to do with this. A lawyer could trace the purchase, tie it directly to Zachary. Establish intent. Intent was everything. I swept the small beam of light around the rest of the shed. In the far corner, under a splintered shelf, something caught my eye. A cardboard box. Small, crumpled, almost forgotten. I knelt and pulled it free. Dust puffed up around it. Inside, photographs. Old ones. Edges curled. Colors faded to soft browns and muted blues. The first showed a wedding, Caleb in a brown suit that looked too big for his narrow frame. Ruth beside him in a simple white dress, daisies in her hands. They were smiling like the world had only just opened for them. I hadn't been there. We weren't speaking that year. Over something trivial, something sharp and stupid that had felt important at the time. I had missed his wedding, missed the beginning of his life. Missed decades because I valued being right more than being present. I turned the photo. Next, Linda, maybe 10 years old. Dark braids, gap-toothed grin, her hand tucked in Caleb's, as if she had no doubt he would always be there. I wondered where she was now, if she knew, if she'd tried to reach him and found the line disconnected, if she had been told he didn't want to talk. Then I reached the one that made me pause. A boy, 5 years old, round face, bright eyes, sitting on Caleb's shoulders, tiny hands tangled in his father's hair. Zachary. The look on Caleb's face in that picture was pure, protective, proud. A father who would have stepped in front of anything for that child. That boy had loved him once. You could see it. So what happened? Did something fracture along the way? Or had the fracture always been there, small, invisible, waiting for the right pressure? Maybe Zachary had always carried this inside him, and Caleb, blinded by love, refused to see it, until it was too late. I placed the photographs back in the box carefully, slid it under the shelf, checked my watch. 11:08 p.m. 8 years since Ruth's funeral. 8 years since I'd told Caleb his son was dangerous. 8 years since he told me to leave. In that time, Zachary had severed every connection, rewritten reality, drained accounts, installed locks, introduced poison, and I had been in Oregon, retired, comfortable, convincing myself I'd done enough. I leaned back against the wall and closed my eyes. Caleb had survived 4 years here. 1,400 nights of chemical air and gnawing rodents and silence thick enough to choke on, carving messages into wood for a little girl who might never see them. He survived because somewhere inside he believed someone would come. I wasn't going to make him wrong. A sound. Soft. Outside. Footsteps moving through the grass. Light. Measured. Hesitant. I rose and moved toward the door, placing my ear against the cool metal. The footsteps stopped. A whisper. Small. Trembling. Grandpa Emma. I crouched and lowered my voice toward the narrow gap at the bottom of the door. I'm here, sweetheart. A faint scraping sound. I brought you water. The bottle inside is old. Daddy doesn't change it. Something slid across the concrete and nudged against my hand. A plastic bottle. Cold, full, fresh. I picked it up. Thank you, I said quietly. Are you okay? She asked. Daddy was really mad today. I'm okay. He scares me when he's mad. The honesty in her voice cut deeper than anything else that day. I closed my eyes, choosing my words carefully. Emma, do you remember the phone you gave your grandpa? Yes, that was very brave. You helped him more than you know. Silence stretched between us. Is he coming back? She asked. The question carried hope and fear in equal measure. Yes, I said. Soon. But right now, I need you to be brave again. Can you do that? A pause? I think so. Good. Don't tell anyone you're bringing me water. Don't tell anyone we talked. Just keep doing what you're doing. And when your grandpa comes back, things will be different. Promise. The word hung in the air like a contract. I promise. Okay. I have to go. Aunt Jessica is looking for me. Go. Be careful. Her footsteps retreated soft and quick, fading into the yard. I sat back down and stared at the water bottle in my hands, a 9-year-old child sneaking through the dark to bring water to the man she believed was her grandfather, risking punishment, risking anger. Caleb carved those words into the wall for a reason. Emma was his sunshine, the only warmth in 4 years of controlled darkness, and now she was part of my responsibility. I twisted the cap and drank deeply. The water was clean, cold, real. I set it beside me and lay back on the mattress, eyes open in the dark. Tomorrow Zachary would test me. He would push, probe, see if I responded differently. See if the broken man he thought he owned had changed. But I wasn't broken. I was trained. 40 years of reading lies, surviving pressure, waiting for the right moment to strike. Zachary believed he'd locked his father inside a cage. He believed the door and the keypad and the poison made him untouchable. He believed control meant victory. He didn't understand something simple. He hadn't locked a dying man in here. He had locked in someone who knew how to wait. And sooner or later, cages fail. And wolves don't stay caged forever. The kitchen smelled like old grease and meat cooked too long over too high a flame. The air was heavy humid with fryer smoke and something sour underneath it. I stood just inside the doorway and watched them eat. Zachary sat at the head of the table, like a king in a collapsing kingdom. A thick ribeye lay on his plate, seared hard on the outside, bleeding in the center. He carved into it with slow, exaggerated strokes, chewing with his mouth open. Grease shone along his chin and gathered in the creases at the corners of his lips. Vanessa sat to his right, legs crossed, posture rigid. A plate of roasted chicken in front of her. She picked at it without appetite, scrolling her phone between bites, red acrylic nails tapping against the screen. Across from her sat Lorraine, 2 slices of pizza balanced on a paper plate. She ate mechanically, eyes dull, jaw working in steady rhythm. Jessica slouched at the far end of the table, one knee hooked over the other, thumb sliding up and down her phone screen. A slice of pepperoni pizza dangled loosely in her hand. And Emma, small, quiet, almost folded into herself. A styrofoam cup of instant ramen sat in front of her, the cheap kind that cost less than $1. She lifted the noodles carefully with her spoon, blowing on them, before each bite stretching the meal like she understood scarcity better than any child should. No one spoke. Only the scrape of cutlery, the low hum of the refrigerator, the occasional clink of a glass. Zachary noticed me first. "What are you doing?" he asked, words muffled by steak. "Waiting," I replied. "For what dinner?" He barked a laugh and gestured with his knife toward the counter. "Your food's over there. Bowl and bread. Don't say I don't feed you." I turned. A chipped ceramic bowl sat on the counter. Soup, congealed, a thin gray skin floating on top. Beside it, a piece of bread so hard it looked fossilized green creeping along the edges. I looked back at the table, at the ribeye, the chicken, the pizza, at Emma's cup of noodles, at Zachary's plate overflowing while his daughter rationed broth. Something inside me didn't flare. It crystallized, cold, clear. I stepped fully into the light, walked toward the table. Chairs creaked as heads lifted. Surprise flickered across faces that had grown accustomed to a silent, compliant man. I stopped beside Zachary, looked down at his plate. "You're not eating that," I said evenly. He blinked. I reached down and picked up the steak with my bare hand. It was still warm. Grease slid between my fingers, dripping onto the table. I took a bite. Silence dropped over the room like a curtain. Vanessa's fork slipped from her hand and clattered against porcelain. Jessica froze mid-scroll. Lorraine's chewing stopped mid-motion. Emma stared at me with wide, unblinking eyes. Zachary shot to his feet so fast his chair screeched backward across the tile. "What the hell do you think you're?" I swallowed deliberately. Took another bite, chewed slow, maintained eye contact. "I'm hungry," I said calmly. I took it. "What are you going to do?" His face flushed, deep red, blotchy, and uneven. His fists clenched at his sides, knuckles whitening. I could see the tremor running through his arms. His breathing shifted, short, sharp pulls through his nose. He stepped toward me. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't break the stare. For a moment the air tightened between us, 2 feet apart, his fists raised slightly, mine holding his dinner. And then I saw it. The flicker, the doubt. His eyes locked on mine and something inside them faltered. Confusion. Calculation. The faintest whisper of fear. He had spent 4 years looking at a broken man. A man who flinched. A man who lowered his gaze. A man who shrank. But I wasn't shrinking. Somewhere beneath the beer and bravado, Zachary understood that. His eyes dropped, just for a second, to the floor, then back up. But it was enough. He stepped back. "You've lost your mind," he muttered. His voice was quieter now, less certain. I took another bite of the steak and let the silence expand. Let him feel it. Let him process the fact that he had backed down in front of his wife, his mother-in-law, his daughter. I finished the steak. Every bite. Slow. Intentional. When it was gone, I set the empty plate back in front of him. "You're not dealing with the same man anymore," I said. No one moved. Vanessa's mouth hung open. Jessica had completely forgotten her phone. Lorraine stared as if she were trying to solve a puzzle she didn't understand. Emma's eyes shone not with fear, with something else. Hope. I turned and walked toward the back door. "Get back in the shed," Zachary barked behind me. His voice wavered despite the volume. "Now." I paused, looked over my shoulder. "I know the way," I said. Then I stepped outside, across the yard, through knee-high grass and broken lawn furniture, to the shed. The door stood slightly ajar. No lock engaged yet. I went inside and closed it gently behind me. Sat on the mattress. My hands were slick with grease. I wiped them on the denim of Caleb's jeans. My pulse pounded, not from fear, but from the sharp, clean satisfaction of watching a control system fracture. 40 years as an investigator had taught me something simple: power is perception, and I had just altered the perception. From the house, voices rose. Zachary shouting, Vanessa shouting back. Something shattered glass against tile. A door slammed upstairs. Footsteps pounded. I leaned back against the wall and let the noise wash over me. Let them unravel. Tomorrow I would press again. Not recklessly, strategically. Push just enough to destabilize, to provoke, to make Zachary question his dominance. Men like him rely on routine, predictability, fear. Remove one of those elements, and they start to slip. The electronic lock clicked outside. Zachary resetting the code, reasserting control in the only way he knew how. It didn't matter. I pulled the button camera from my collar and checked the recording. Still running. Battery at 60%. The entire exchange captured the stake, the confrontation, the hesitation in Zachary's eyes. Evidence. Good. I powered it down and lay back on the mattress, staring into the darkness. A door creaked open from the house. Soft footsteps crossed the grass again, paused at the shed door. A whisper, "Grandpa, Emma." I sat up and moved closer. "I'm here," I answered quietly. "That was amazing," she whispered, breathless. "Daddy got so mad. He threw a glass. Mom told him to calm down. Grandma said you've gone crazy." I couldn't help it. I smiled. "Maybe I have." "No." Her voice was small but firm. "You're different. You're not scared anymore." I pressed my palm flat against the inside of the metal door. Wished I could see her face. "Your grandpa is a strong man, Emma," I said softly. "Stronger than anyone gave him credit for. He just forgot for a while. But he's remembering." A pause. "Is he really coming back?" "Yes." "Promise, I promise." Silence stretched between us, then quieter still, "I'm glad you're here." My throat tightened unexpectedly. Me too, sweetheart. I have to go. Daddy's looking for me. Be careful. I will. Her footsteps retreated. Soft. Quick. Gone. I sat back down and exhaled slowly. Tomorrow Zachary would escalate. He would test harder, push further, perhaps try intimidation, perhaps violence. Good. The more pressure he applied, the more cracks would show. And every crack I would capture. He thought he had locked his father in a cage. He had no idea he'd just invited something far more dangerous inside. And I was only getting started. The house emptied just after 9. I heard Zachary's truck start. Heard Vanessa yelling at Emma to hurry up. Heard the crunch of gravel as they pulled out of the driveway. Then silence. I waited. Counted to 60. Listened for any sound. Nothing. I pulled the lockpicks from my pocket. The shed door was easy, cheap electronic lock, the kind you bought online for $50. Took me 30 seconds. The door clicked open. I slipped inside the house through the unlocked back door. Careless. Arrogant. Zachary didn't think his father could escape. I moved through the kitchen, past the table where I'd taken Zachary's steak, climbed the stairs. Slow. Careful. Every step a potential creak. Zachary's office was at the end of the hall. Door half open. Messy. Papers scattered across a cheap desk. A laptop sitting open screen, dark. I touched the trackpad. The screen lit up. No password prompt, just the desktop. I opened the file explorer. Found a folder labeled Land Highway Project. Clicked it. A PDF. Appraisal report. Official letterhead. Tennessee Department of Transportation. Property value $6,200,000. Highway expansion project. Total budget $180 million. Estimated closing date, August 15, 2025. $6.2 million. For a piece of land Caleb probably didn't even know he still owned. Land his father had bought 50 years ago for almost nothing. Zachary had found out, and he'd decided it was his. I pulled out the button camera, took a photo of the screen. Then I opened the next file. Life insurance policy, Caleb Redford. Beneficiary, Zachary Redford. Death benefit $750,000. Policy date March 12, 2023. 2 years ago. Right around the time Zachary started stuffing rags into the vent. I took another photo, opened the next folder. Bank statements. Caleb's accounts. Pension payments. Social Security deposits. Every month, like clockwork, the money came in. And every month it went straight out, transferred to an account in Zachary's name. I scrolled back. 8 years of transfers. Every month. $2,400 pension. $1,850 Social Security. Over $400,000. Zachary had stolen $400,000 from his own father. I found a USB drive in the desk drawer. Plugged it in. Copied everything. The land appraisal, the insurance policy, the bank statements. A file labeled POA 2017, a forged power of attorney. Caleb's signature shaky, wrong nothing like the confident script I'd seen on the old photos. Then I found another folder. Costa Rica, villa, a real estate contract. Beachfront condo. 3 bedrooms. Pool. Ocean view. Purchase price $890,000. Closing date June 1st, 2025. 2 weeks before the land deal closed. Zachary was planning to run. Take the money and disappear. I opened the browser history. Gambling sites, dozens of them. Poker, sports betting, online casinos, current balance minus $85,000. Zachary wasn't just greedy. He was desperate, buried in debt. Betting on a dead father and a piece of land to save him. I pulled out my phone, dialed a number I hadn't used in 3 years. Warren Legal. Mitchell. It's Gideon Redford. Elder abuse case. Financial exploitation. Fraud. I'm sending you evidence today. Jesus, where are you? Tennessee, just be ready. I hung up, ejected the USB, slipped it into my sock. Then I heard it. A car. Close. Zachary's truck, pulling into the driveway. I closed the laptop, moved down the hall. Took the stairs 2 at a time. Hit the kitchen just as the front door slammed. I went out the back. Across the yard. Into the shed. Pulled the door shut. Heard the electronic lock click a second later. I sat down on the mattress. Let my heartbeat slow. Checked the USB in my sock. Still there. I had everything I needed. Financial records, insurance fraud, forged documents. Enough to put Zachary away for a decade. But I wasn't done yet. Later that afternoon, Zachary came to the shed. You got a doctor's appointment. Get up. Vanessa's driving. Don't embarrass me. I followed him to the truck. We drove in silence. 20 minutes through Millbrook to a clinic with a faded sign, Pierce Family Medicine. The waiting room was empty. A nurse led me back. Took my vitals. Doctor'll be right in. The door opened. A man in his mid-50s. Thinning gray hair. Wire-rimmed glasses. White coat. Tired eyes. Dr. Gregory Pierce. Caleb, how are we feeling today? Fine. Good. Your son tells me you've been having some memory issues. Let's do a quick cognitive assessment. Can you tell me what year it is? And the president, I gave him the name. But can you count backward from 100 by sevens? 100, 93, 86, 79, 72. He frowned, wrote something on his clipboard. Can you tell me where you are right now? Pierce Family Medicine, Millbrook, Tennessee. His frown deepened. Vanessa's phone rang outside. She stepped into the hall. The moment the door closed, I leaned forward. How much is he paying you? I said. Voice low, calm. Dr. Pierce blinked. Excuse me. Zachary, how much did he pay you to declare me incompetent? His face went pale. I don't know what you're... To Medicaid fraud. 2019. Falsified disability claims. I know about all of it. One call to the state medical board and your license is gone. His mouth opened, closed. Who? Doesn't matter. What matters is you're going to refuse to sign any evaluation. You're going to tell Zachary I'm perfectly healthy, and when the police come asking, you're going to tell them the truth about what he tried to make you do. He stared at me, hands shaking. Do we understand each other? He nodded. Barely. The door opened. Vanessa stepped back in. Everything okay? She asked. Dr. Pierce cleared his throat. Everything's fine. Your father-in-law is in excellent health, cognitively sound. No issues whatsoever. Vanessa's smile faltered. But Zachary said, Zachary was mistaken. Caleb's doing very well for his age. He looked at me. Aren't you Caleb? I nodded. We walked back to the truck. Vanessa was silent. Angry. She slammed the door. What did you say to him? She hissed. Nothing, I said. Bullshit. He was supposed to say you were losing your mind. That was the whole point. I shrugged. She started the engine, peeled out of the parking lot. Zachary's going to be pissed, she muttered. I looked out the window, watched the town roll by. Yeah, I said, I'm counting on it. All right. Before I reveal Gideon's next move, I need to know you're still here. Comment 17 below if you're locked in with this story. And a quick note. The next part includes a few dramatized elements for storytelling. If it's not your style, feel free to step away. But if you're staying, it's about to get intense. The morning sun hit the shed door at an angle that made the metal glow. I pushed it open, stepped out into the light. No sneaking, no hiding. Just walked straight across the yard toward the house. Zachary was on the porch, coffee in one hand, cigarette in the other. He saw me coming, Squinted. Where do you think you're going? Shopping, I said. He laughed. Short. Mean. Shopping. You. With what money, old man? I stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, reached into my back pocket, pulled out my wallet, flipped it open. The black card sat in the front slot. American Express. No limit. I held it up. My money, always have. Zachary's smile faltered. He stared at the card. That's fake. Try it and see. Vanessa appeared in the doorway. Where'd you get that? It's mine. I slipped the wallet back into my pocket. I'll be back in a few hours. I turned, started walking. Hey, Zachary shouted. You can't just leave. I kept walking, didn't stop, didn't look back. Let them yell. Millbrook wasn't much. Main Street, a diner, a hardware store, and tucked between a laundromat and a barber shop, a small storefront premium car rentals. I walked in. The guy behind the counter looked up from his phone. I help you. I need a car. You got an Escalade. He tapped his computer, frowned. Yeah, graphite gray. Just came back this morning. I'll take it. It's $3.50 a day. Fine. I handed him the black card. He swiped it. The machine beeped. Approved. His eyes widened. Okay. Let me get the keys. 10 minutes later, I was behind the wheel of a Cadillac Escalade. Leather seats, tinted windows, enough chrome to blind someone in direct sunlight. I drove 3 blocks to a men's clothing store. Small place. Family-owned. A man in his 60s appeared from the back. Gray hair. Tape measure around his neck. He looked me up and down, took in Caleb's stained flannel-torn jeans, bare feet, and his expression didn't change. Good morning. How can I help you? I need a suit, shoes, a watch. He didn't ask questions, didn't judge, just measured me. Pulled suits off the rack. I picked navy, clean, sharp. He found a light gray shirt, brown leather Oxfords, showed me a Tag Heuer, stainless steel. Simple, elegant. This one, I said, $4,000 for the suit. Another $4,800 for the watch. I changed in the dressing room, left Caleb's rags in a pile on the floor. When I walked out, the old man nodded. You look like a different man. That's the idea. I drove back to the house. Parked the Escalade right in front. Front and center. The porch was full. Zachary, Vanessa, Lorraine, Jessica, all of them staring. Lorraine's mouth fell open. Jessica dropped her phone. Vanessa took a step back. Where did you? I didn't answer. Just walked toward them. Slowly, deliberately. Let them see the suit, the shoes, the watch. Zachary's face went from red to purple. What the hell is this? I told you, shopping. Where'd you get that car? Rented it. With what money? Mine. His jaw worked, fists clenched. You don't have money. And clearly I do. Vanessa stepped forward. That's not possible. We control your accounts. You control Caleb's accounts, I said. Not mine. Silence. Zachary's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? I smiled. Didn't answer. Just walked past them. Into the house. Up the stairs. I walked down the hall. Pushed open the door to the master bedroom. Zachary and Vanessa's room. I sat down on the bed, leaned back, crossed my legs. Zachary appeared in the doorway, face twisted. Get out! No, this is my room. Not anymore. I said get out. I stood, slowly, calmly, unbuckled the watch. Emma appeared in the hallway, peeking around the corner, eyes wide. I walked to the door, crouched down in front of her. Hold this for me, sweetheart, I said, handed her the watch. I don't want it getting scratched. She took it, carefully, like I'd just handed her the crown jewels. Zachary's fists shook. Don't you touch her. I stood, looked him in the eye. I didn't touch her. I asked her to help me. There's a difference. He opened his mouth, closed it. Looked at Vanessa. She shook her head slightly. He stepped back. Just an inch. But it was enough. I walked past him, back into the bedroom, closed the door, locked it from the inside. They pounded on it for 10 minutes. Zachary, Vanessa, Lorraine shouting threats. I ignored them. Eventually, they gave up. Footsteps retreated. Doors slammed. The house went quiet. Around midnight, I heard voices. Low, angry, coming from downstairs. I stood, pressed my ear to the floor. Zachary's voice, rough, furious. He's different. Something's wrong. This isn't him. Vanessa's voice, sharp. You think I don't know that he's not acting like your father, like someone else? A pause. You think someone switched them, Vanessa said. I don't know, but we don't have time to figure it out. The party's in 6 days. If he doesn't sign, we lose everything. So what do? We move up the timeline. Another pause. How much faster? Tomorrow night. I'll handle it. You just keep your mouth shut and stay out of the way. Footsteps, a door closing. Silence. I sat back down on the bed, pulled the button camera from my collar, checked the recording. Still going. Battery at 40%. Enough. I lay back, closed my eyes. Tomorrow night. Zachary was going to make his move. Faster than I'd expected. But that was fine. The faster he moved, the sloppier he'd get. And sloppy people made mistakes. I'd spent 40 years waiting for people to make mistakes. I could wait one more day. The garage sat behind the house like a separate world. Detached. Window tinted with grime. A single floodlight over the door. Zachary's refuge. His man cave. The place he retreated to when he wanted to drink gamble and pretend he was the one in control. Tonight the lights were on. Music spilled out through the cracked window, classic rock cranked too high. The kind of volume that meant someone had already been drinking for a while. I moved through the yard, slowly keeping to the shadows. Pressed my back against the cold metal siding of the garage. Listened. Laughter, glass clinking, the scrape of chairs. I unclipped the button camera from my collar and held it up toward the window. Adjusted the angle carefully until I could see inside. 2 men. Zachary. And another I didn't recognize immediately, mid-40s, thinning hair, polo shirt tucked into pressed jeans. An expensive watch caught the light when he lifted his arm. Richard Donovan, Zachary's boss, had to be. I tapped the camera on. The red light blinked once, recording. Inside, Zachary sloshed bourbon into a glass. His hand was unsteady. Half the liquor splashed onto the table, soaking into a stack of playing cards. To the good life, he said, raising his drink. Richard lifted his glass halfway. Sure, you don't sound excited, Rick. I'm excited, Richard said flatly. Just tired. Tired, Zachary barked out a laugh, sharp, mean. You're tired. Try dealing with a crazy old man who thinks he owns the place. Try drowning in bills you can't climb over. Richard set his cards down and leaned back. You doing okay, Zachary? Okay, Zachary grinned, eyes glassy. I'm about to be better than okay. Richard's expression didn't change. I'm about to be rich, Zachary continued. You know that land my old man's sitting on $6.2 million. Richard blinked. What state's buying it? Highway expansion. Market value 6.2. He tapped his temple. And it's mine. Your dad's, Richard corrected. Zachary's smile didn't falter. Same thing. Richard's jaw tightened. Is it? It will be, Zachary said. He leaned back, stretching his legs. Party's in 5 days. May 15th. Signature goes on the deed. Transfer of ownership. Clean. Legal. After that, me and Vanessa are gone. Mexico, beachfront condo, 3 bedrooms, pool, ocean view. Closings June 1st. Richard stared at him. What about your dad? Zachary shrugged. What about him, you just leaving him here? Not exactly. The air shifted. Zachary. Richard's voice lowered. Cautious. Relax. Zachary poured more bourbon. It's handled. Handled how Zachary leaned forward, elbows on the table. Lowered his voice, but not enough. Gas leak, he said. Richard went still. Water heater in the shed's been acting up. Zachary continued casually. Temperamental. One of these days it's just gonna fail. Tragic accident. Old man living alone in a shed with no ventilation. By the time anyone finds him, too late. Richard stared at him in disbelief. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Zachary, that's smart. Zachary snapped. That's what it is. He lifted his glass again. I've got a $750 life insurance policy on him, he said. Bought it 2 years ago. Dr. Pierce already agreed to sign the death certificate. No autopsy. Just a sad, unfortunate accident. Richard set his drink down slowly. You're talking about killing your father. I'm talking about getting what's mine? Zachary shot back. 8 years I've taken care of that man. 8 years. So he can sit on $6 million and do nothing with it. No. I'm done. His voice sharpened. May 15th I get that signature. If I don't, he's got a week. Maybe less. Then the problem solves itself. Richard pushed his chair back abruptly. I don't want to hear this. Why? Zachary laughed. You think I'm the first guy to make a hard choice? This isn't a hard choice, Richard said. This is survival. Zachary cut in, slamming his glass on the table. Bourbon sloshed over the edge. You don't get it. You've got your nice house, your steady paycheck. I've got debt and a father who won't move on. So yeah, I'm making a decision. Richard stood. I'm leaving. Good, Zachary said flatly. Go. The door banged open. Gravel crunched under tires moments later. Zachary sat alone. He looked down at the cards spread across the table, lifted his glass. To early retirement, he muttered to the empty garage. And a father who's worth more gone than he ever was here. He drank. I lowered the camera slowly. My hands were shaking, not from cold, from something darker. I'd heard confessions before. Criminals admitting fraud, affairs, theft, assault. But I had never heard a man toast his father's death like it was a line item on a business plan. For a second, I wanted to storm inside, drag him out by his collar, end it right there. No, I forced myself to breathe, slow, controlled. Not yet. I had what I needed. Every word, every detail, the insurance policy, the doctor's name, the staged gas leak, the deadline, all of it on camera. I moved back across the yard, careful not to break cover. Slipped inside the shed and shut the door quietly behind me. I connected the camera to my phone. The file loaded. I hit play, crystal clear, audio sharp, Zachary's face visible, his voice unmistakable. I watched it once, then again. Then I opened my messages and found Mitchell Warren's name. Typed, got the confession. Phase 2. Sent. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Send it to me. Now. I attached the video. Sent. The phone buzzed less than a minute later. This is enough. I can have the DA ready. When do you want to move? I stared at the screen. 5 days until the party. 5 days until Zachary tried to force Caleb's signature. 5 days until he believed he had won. I could end it tonight. Call the police. Have him arrested in his garage with bourbon on his breath. But that wouldn't be enough. Zachary had spent 8 years dismantling my brother, piece by piece, isolating him, stealing from him, erasing him, planning to finish him off quietly. I didn't want a quiet arrest. I wanted exposure. Neighbors, co-workers, family friends, everyone who had accepted the story that Caleb was unstable. I wanted them to see the truth. I typed party, May 15th, 3 p.m. I'll have him talking. Be ready to move by 4:30. 3 dots flickered. You're sure? I typed back, I'm sure. A pause. Then okay. Police will be standing by. You play your hand? I'll play mine. I set the phone down, leaned back against the wall of the shed, closed my eyes. Zachary thought he had time, thought he could secure the signature and disappear to Mexico, thought he controlled the clock. In 5 days he would stand in front of everyone he knew and watch it collapse. Footsteps outside. Soft. Careful. A whisper at the door. Grandpa, Emma. I moved closer to the door. I'm here. Are you okay? I heard Daddy yelling. I'm fine. He's really mean when he drinks, I know. There was a pause. Is it almost over? She asked. I thought about the video file now sitting on Mitchell Warren's phone, about the DA's office preparing, about May 15th. Almost, I said softly. Just a little longer. Okay, she whispered. Good night, Grandpa. Good night, Emma. Her footsteps faded into the yard. I checked the camera battery. 20%. Enough. 5 days. 5 days until Zachary walked into his own party, thinking he was about to inherit $6 million. 5 days until he realized he had been recorded. 5 days until he lost everything. I could wait 5 days. Afternoon light slipped through the cracks in the shed walls in narrow golden blades. Dust floated in the beams, rising and falling with each breath I took. I sat on the thin mattress back against the wood eyes half closed. 4 days. 4 days until the party. 4 days until Zachary stood in front of everyone he knew and unknowingly signed his own confession. A soft knock broke the quiet. 3 light taps. Careful. Grandpa, Emma. I pushed myself up and moved to the door. I'm here. Something slid under the gap at the bottom, plastic wrapped, cold against my fingers. A sandwich, turkey and cheese, still chilled from the refrigerator. Thank you, I said. There was a pause on the other side of the door. Then her voice dropped lower. Can I tell you something? Of course. Aunt Jessica's hiding something, she whispered. I saw her last night. She had papers and money. She was counting it. I crouched lower, bringing my mouth closer to the gap. What kind of papers, I don't know. Big brown envelope. She kept looking at it and smiling. Then she put it in her drawer and locked it. Jessica, Vanessa's younger sister, the one who'd laughed about Caleb still being alive. Thank you for telling me, I said softly. Be careful, Emma added. She's mean. Despite everything, I smiled. I will. That night, I'd find out exactly what Jessica was hiding. The house went quiet just after 11. One by one, lights shut off. Doors closed. The television hummed faintly from Zachary and Vanessa's bedroom. I waited another 20 minutes. Then I moved. The lock on the shed door was electronic, but the manual latch on the inside had been neglected. I'd tested it earlier. A slight gap in the alignment. Enough. I slipped out into the night, crossed the yard barefoot for silence. Climbed the back steps, slowly, each board memorized in case it creaked. Jessica's room sat at the end of the hallway. Door closed. No light underneath. I took the lockpicks from my pocket. Cheap interior hardware. Basic pin tumbler, 20 seconds. The latch clicked softly. I paused. Listened. Nothing. I opened the door just enough to slip inside. The room smelled of sweet perfume layered over stale cigarette smoke. Clothes were scattered across the floor. A laptop sat open on the bed screen, dark but still warm. I moved to the dresser. Top drawer. Locked. I knelt and worked the pick again. Another 20 seconds. Click. I eased the drawer open. Inside sat a thick manila envelope. Heavy. Bulging. I lifted it carefully and opened the flap. Legal documents. Printed on heavy stock paper with official-looking seals. Quitclaim deed. Transfer of real property. Grantor Caleb Redford. Grantee Zachary Redford. Property 342 Oakwood Drive, Millbrook, Tennessee. Approximately 40 acres. Date of transfer May 16, 2025. One day after the party. This wasn't the state land deal. This was the house. The property. Everything Caleb owned. And the signature at the bottom, Caleb Redford, was a forgery. It was close, but wrong. The pressure uneven. The angle off. A hesitant hand trying to imitate confidence. I pulled the button camera from my collar and began photographing each page. The deed, the signature, the date, the embossed seal, the notarized affidavit attached behind it, signed by Melinda Cross, Notary, Public State of Tennessee. I doubted Melinda Cross had ever laid eyes on this document. The third item inside the envelope stopped me. A check. Uncashed. Payable to Jessica Sullivan. Amount $50,000. Memo services rendered. $50,000. For forging the deed. For stamping a false notary seal. For silence. I photographed the check front and back. Then carefully slid everything back into the envelope. Returned it to the drawer exactly as I found it. Closed and relocked it. No trace. I turned toward the door and froze. A small shadow stood just outside the doorway. Emma. Bare feet. Nightgown brushing her knees. Eyes wide in the dim hallway light. I stepped out and closed Jessica's door behind me. Knelt so we were eye level. You should be asleep, I said gently. I heard you walking. She studied me closely. You're not my grandpa, she said. The words hit harder than anything else that night. What makes you think that? I asked quietly. Your eyes, she said. They look like his, but they're not sad. Grandpa's eyes were always sad. She tilted her head. And you don't talk like him. And when Daddy yells at you, you don't look scared. Grandpa was always scared, 9 years old, observant. Too observant. Are you going to tell anyone? I asked. She shook her head immediately. No. Why not? Because you're helping him, she said simply. Aren't you? I held her gaze. Yes. I am. Where is he? Somewhere safe. Resting, getting stronger. Is he coming back? Very soon. Her eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. Promise. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the photograph. 2 boys. 7 years old. Arms around each other. I handed it to her. That's your grandpa, I said, pointing to the boy on the left. And that's me, Uncle Gideon. We're twins. I came to help him. She looked from the photo to my face and back again. The resemblance was undeniable. Slowly, she nodded. Can you keep this secret? Just a few more days I can. If your dad finds out, I said carefully, it won't be safe. For you, or for me. Do you understand? I understand. I opened my arms. She stepped forward and wrapped hers around my neck, held on tight. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For coming. My throat tightened unexpectedly. You're very brave, Emma. She pulled back and looked at me seriously. So are you. I smiled and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. Go back to bed. I won't tell, she said before I could finish. She turned and padded down the hallway, closing her bedroom door softly behind her. I stood there for a moment. A 9-year-old girl had seen through a disguise that had fooled adults, and she'd chosen loyalty, not to her father, but to her grandfather. I slipped back downstairs and out into the yard, crossed the grass and returned to the shed, sat on the mattress, pulled out my phone, opened the photos of the forged deed, the fake notary seal, the $50,000 check, sent them to Mitchell Warren. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. This is fraud, felony forgery, conspiracy. Add it to the pile. I typed back, how big is the pile now? A moment later, big enough to bury him. I set the phone down and leaned back against the wall. 4 days. 4 days until Zachary stood in front of friends, neighbors, co-workers, and watched the mask come off. 4 days until Caleb walked through the door. 4 days until handcuffs clicked shut. 4 days until Emma no longer had to whisper through metal. I closed my eyes. I could wait 4 days. The trucks rolled in just after dawn. White cargo vans. A flatbed hauling folded metal frames. Another pulling a generator. Men in work boots unloading canvas poles and stacks of rented chairs. From the narrow shed window, I watched Zachary stride across the yard like a commander inspecting troops. He pointed, barked instructions, adjusted the placement of the tent with exaggerated authority. A white canopy rose slowly over the backyard. By mid-morning, folding chairs were arranged in neat rows facing a small rented stage. Long banquet tables lined one side. A portable bar stood in the corner. Extension cords snaked toward the generator. 60 guests expected. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, all of them about to witness the collapse of a carefully constructed lie. Tomorrow. By noon, the tent was fully assembled. Strings of lights hung from the poles. A projector screen stood behind the stage. Zachary hovered nearby, making small adjustments, as if aesthetics mattered more than what was coming. Late afternoon, the shed door swung open without warning. Inside. Now. I rose and followed him into the house. He walked straight into the living room and handed me a glass. Whiskey. Neat. Drink. I drank. He watched my throat as I swallowed. Tomorrow, he said, voice low but sharp, 3 o'clock. You sign that deed. Transfer of property. Caleb Redford to Zachary Redford. In front of everyone. Clean. Legal. You understand? I understand. And you're not going to cause a scene. You smile. You sign. You shake my hand. Then you go back to the shed until I decide what to do with you. I nodded once. He stepped closer, breath heavy with bourbon. If you try anything, you will never leave that shed again. Are we clear? Clear. Vanessa appeared in the doorway, arms folded. She studied me from head to toe and grimaced. He can't wear that tomorrow. Zachary frowned. Wear what, that? She gestured toward the stained flannel hanging off my frame. He looks like he crawled out from under a bridge. People are taking pictures. This is going online. I'm not having that. I set the glass down slowly. I have something, I said. They both stared. You have something? Vanessa repeated, disbelief lacing her voice. Upstairs. I walked past them without waiting for permission. In the closet behind older coats and forgotten jackets hung the navy suit I had purchased quietly in Millbrook days earlier. Pressed, crisp, waiting. I changed deliberately. White shirt buttoned clean to the collar. Tie straightened. Jacket slipped on smoothly. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see Caleb. I saw a man who had come to settle accounts. I went back downstairs. Vanessa's mouth fell open. Lorraine dropped her coffee mug. It shattered against the tile ceramic fragments skittering across the floor. Zachary's face drained of color. Where did you? You said wear something nice, I replied evenly. I'm wearing something nice. His jaw tightened, his fists flexed at his sides. He glanced at Vanessa. She gave the slightest shake of her head. Fine, he said finally, voice strained. Wear it. But tomorrow you sign. Tomorrow I agreed. I stepped outside. The air felt different against the fabric of the suit. Cleaner. Sharper. The tent glowed in the late afternoon light. Workers packed up equipment. A few neighbors had drifted over, drawn by curiosity. One of them stopped mid-step when she saw me. Eleanor Whitmore, 71. Silver hair swept back neatly. Leaning on a polished wooden cane. She had once brought casseroles to Caleb after Ruth died, until Zachary discouraged her visits. She approached slowly. Caleb, I turned toward her. Hello, Eleanor. Her brows furrowed. My lord, you look different. Different how I don't know. She studied my posture, my eyes. Stronger, taller somehow. Are you all right? If something's wrong, you can tell me. I know Zachary can be difficult. I placed a steady hand on her shoulder. I've never felt better, Eleanor. She searched my face as if trying to locate the grief she'd grown used to seeing. Just watch tomorrow, I said softly. Everything's going to be fine. She didn't look convinced, but she nodded. If you say so. I do. She patted my hand and walked back toward her house, glancing over her shoulder once more. I turned back to the tent. Evening settled in. The workers were gone. The canopy stood empty but expectant. Strings of lights flickered overhead. A projector sat mounted near the stage, connected to a laptop resting on a table. Zachary had rented it for a slideshow wedding photos, vacation snapshots, a curated narrative of a perfect life. I walked inside the tent alone, tested the projector, checked the speakers, opened the laptop. Everything was connected and ready. I took out my phone, opened the video recorded in the garage 3 nights ago. Zachary's voice. Clear, confident, detailed. Gas leak. $750,000 life insurance policy. Worth more gone than he ever was here. I connected my phone to the laptop and tested playback. The video filled the screen, crystal clear, audio sharp. I watched 10 seconds. Disconnected. Cleared the connection history. Closed every window. Left everything precisely as I found it. Tomorrow, Zachary would press play, expecting applause. Instead, he would get truth. I returned to the shed and pulled out my phone. Dialed Mitchell Warren. He answered immediately. Gideon, tomorrow. 3 o'clock the party starts. I need you here by 4:30. Bring police. Bring whoever you need. You're sure? He asked. I'm sure. Once you do this, there's no going back. Good, I replied. That's the point. A brief pause. What's the signal? You'll know it when you see it. He gave a dry laugh. All right. We'll be there. 4:30. Don't do anything reckless before then. No promises. I ended the call and sat on the mattress staring at the carved words on the wall. Emma's sunshine. Tomorrow that sunshine would no longer shine through a crack under a metal door. Footsteps approached. The shed door opened. Zachary stepped inside holding a document and a pen. Here, he shoved them into my hands. Practice. I looked down. Official legal stock paper. Transfer of property Caleb Redford to Zachary Redford. The signature line sat blank at the bottom. Zachary leaned in close, watching me carefully. Tomorrow, he said, 3 o'clock. You sign this in front of everyone. Smooth, clean. Then it's done. And you go back to the shed until I decide where you go next. I picked up the pen, held it over the blank line. Zachary smiled. Certain, victorious. I lifted my eyes and met his. Then I smiled back. Not warm, not nervous, cold, controlled. A smile that said, you have no idea what tomorrow holds. I'll see you tomorrow, I said. His smile flickered. Just briefly, something uneasy crossed his expression. Then he turned, walked out, and locked the shed door behind him. I set the pen down and stared at the document. Tomorrow, he would stand on that stage before 60 guests. He would ask me to sign, and I would refuse. Then I would show them who Zachary Redford truly was. One day left. The trap was built, and Zachary had no idea he was the one standing in it. Before I show you what really happened at that party, type MAY15 in the comments if you're still with me, because that date is about to change everything in this story. And just a quick note, the next part includes dramatized elements for storytelling impact. If this kind of content isn't for you, feel free to step away, but if you stay, you're about to witness the turning point. By 3 o'clock, the backyard was packed. More than 60 people crowded beneath the white tent. String lights glowed softly overhead despite the afternoon sun. Long tables sagged under platters of shrimp, cocktail roast beef fruit trays, arranged like centerpieces. A bartender in a black vest poured champagne into flutes, laughing at something a guest had said. Music drifted from rented speakers, light celebratory. It looked like an anniversary party. It felt like a trial waiting to happen. I sat at the family table in the front row. Emma was beside me. She'd attached herself to my hand the moment the first guests arrived, and hadn't let go since. "Are you scared?" she whispered. "No, I am." I tightened my grip around her small fingers. "You don't have to be. This will be over soon." Across the yard, Zachary worked the crowd like a seasoned politician. Firm handshakes, wide grin, loud laugh. Vanessa hovered at his side in a fitted emerald dress that probably cost more than Caleb's monthly pension. Her hair was styled perfectly, makeup flawless smile curated for photographs. Lorraine stood near the bar, holding court with 2 neighbors. Jessica leaned against a post, scrolling through her phone, bored, occasionally glancing up when someone laughed too loudly. A man in a cheap gray suit walked past our table and did a double take when he saw me. Richard Donovan, Zachary's boss, the man who had heard the confession in the garage. He looked pale, restless. His eyes kept darting toward the stage. He should have stayed home. At 3:30 sharp, Zachary clinked a champagne glass with a fork. The high ring cut through the chatter. Conversations faded. Heads turned. He climbed the small, rented stage microphone in hand. Behind him, the large projection screen glowed blank and expectant. "Thank you all for coming," Zachary began smoothly. "Vanessa and I are so grateful to celebrate 10 years of marriage with the people who matter most." Applause rolled through the tent. A few whistles, laughter. He smiled and waited for the noise to die down. "Before we get to the slideshow and the fun stuff," he continued, "I want to thank the people who made today possible. My beautiful wife, Vanessa. My incredible mother-in-law, Lorraine. My sister-in-law, Jessica. Each name earned polite applause. And most importantly, my father, Caleb. The crowd turned toward me. Zachary's smile widened. Dad's been through a lot these past few years. Losing Mom, getting older. But he's still here, still fighting. And today, I want to honor him. He extended his hand toward me. Dad, come up here. I stood slowly. Emma's hand slipped from mine. You'll be okay, I murmured. She nodded, though her eyes were wide and glassy. Every step toward the stage felt deliberate, controlled, measured. I climbed the 3 steps and joined Zachary under the string lights. He draped an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close in a show of affection. I love this man, Zachary said into the microphone, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. He raised me, taught me everything I know. And today I want to give him something he deserves. Peace of mind. He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a folded document. Opened it with theatrical care. This is just a simple transfer of property. From my father to me. A legal formality so he doesn't have to worry about taxes, maintenance, any of that. All he has to do is sign. Light applause followed. A few approving nods. Someone murmured, "That's sweet." Zachary turned to me and handed over the paper, then produced a pen. Just a signature, Dad. Right here. I took the document. The deed. Official seal. Clean margins. A blank line waiting for Caleb Redford. I let my eyes drift over the crowd. Lorraine smiling confidently. Jessica half looking up from her phone. Richard Donovan staring hard at the grass. Emma watching me like her entire world depended on what I did next. Then I looked back at Zachary. He was certain he had won. I folded the paper once, set it down carefully on the podium. I have a better idea, I said. Zachary blinked, but I gently took the microphone from his hand before he could react. The crowd shifted, uneasy. Before I sign anything, I said clearly, I think everyone here deserves to know what we're actually celebrating. Zachary's smile faltered. Dad, what are you? Let's show them. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small remote. Zachary's eyes widened. Wait. I pressed the button. The screen behind us flickered, then came to life. There he was. Zachary, sitting at a poker table in the garage. Glass in hand. Red-faced. Drunk. His voice filled the speakers. The old man sitting on 6.2 million and doesn't even know it. Silence fell like a curtain. Zachary lunged toward the laptop. I stepped into his path. Move, he hissed. No. On the screen, Zachary continued. Highway project closes in August. I transfer the deed and I'm gone. Mexico. Vanessa's already picked out the condo. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out, recording. Richard Donovan's voice sounded from the speakers. What about your dad on screen? Zachary laughed and lifted his glass. Gas leak. Water heater malfunction. Tragic accident. I've got a $750 life insurance policy ready. Dr. Pearsall signed the death certificate. No questions. A woman near the bar covered her mouth. Vanessa stood abruptly. Turn it off? Zachary tried to push past me again. His movements frantic now. Get out of my way, no. On the screen, Zachary raised his glass one final time. To early retirement, and a father who's worth more gone than he ever was here. He drank. The video ended. The backyard was silent. 60 witnesses, 60 phones, 60 stunned faces. I turned slowly toward Zachary. He stood frozen. Color drained from his face. Mouth open but no words coming out. I leaned toward the microphone. I'm not signing anything. Zachary's eyes darted wildly, searching for an exit. One more thing, I said. I removed the stained flannel overshirt and let it fall to the stage floor. Underneath the navy suit caught the light. Pressed. Immaculate. I straightened my posture. Let my shoulders square. Let Caleb's defeated slump disappear. I'm not Caleb Redford, I said clearly. Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. My name is Gideon Redford, Caleb's twin brother. For the past 10 days, I've been living in that shed behind this house. Recording, documenting, gathering evidence. I pointed toward the yard, that shed where Zachary locked his father for 4 years. Shocked whispers spread like wildfire. I faced Zachary directly. You isolated him, stole his pension, forged his signature, tried to poison him with a gas leak, and tonight you planned to force him to sign everything over in front of witnesses. Zachary shook his head violently. This is insane, is it? I asked calmly. Because the police are already on their way. That landed. He staggered back a step. I scanned the crowd. You all came here for a celebration, I said. You deserve the truth instead. I looked back at Zachary. You thought no one would notice, thought no one would come, thought he was too weak to fight back. I stepped closer. The silence lasted 3 seconds, maybe 4, then the backyard detonated. Voices collided. Gasps cut through the air. Chairs scraped violently against folding tables. Guests surged to their feet. Phones shot upward like flares, lenses trained on the stage, on Zachary, on me. Recording everything. Zachary's face drained of color, then flooded red. He lunged toward the laptop at the edge of the stage. I stepped in front of him and blocked his path. Move! He hissed, breath hot with panic. No, I said move. He shoved me hard in the chest. I didn't budge. It's too late, I said quietly, evenly. Copies are already with the police, the district attorney, a dozen media outlets. You can't stop this. His eyes darted wildly first to the screen, then to the crowd, then to the sea of raised phones capturing his unraveling. This is fake, he shouted. He's lying. That video is edited. No one moved to defend him. Vanessa rushed toward the stage heels, sinking into the grass mascara beginning to streak. Turn it off. Zachary, make him turn it off. I pressed the remote again. The screen flickered. A second video filled the backdrop. Different night. Different room. Jessica sat at the kitchen table. A thick envelope in front of her. Papers fanned out neatly. Zachary's voice off camera, 50,000. Cash. You notarize the deed, backdate it, and keep your mouth shut. On screen, Jessica smiled thinly and picked up a pen. 50,000, she said, and I'll notarize anything you want. The crowd collectively inhaled. Heads turned toward Jessica near the bar. She stood frozen for a heartbeat, eyes wide, color gone. Then she bolted. She sprinted toward the back gate heels, digging uselessly into the lawn. She stumbled once, nearly falling. Frank Morris, retired Marine, 70 years old. Shoulders still broad, stepped directly into her path. Crossed his arms. I don't think so, miss. Jessica stopped short, chest heaving. She spun in place, searching for escape. There was none. Her knees buckled. She dropped to the grass and began sobbing. I didn't know. He said it was just paperwork. I didn't know. No one rushed to comfort her. I turned back toward Zachary. He stood at the edge of the stage, trembling now, not with rage, but with the sudden realization that control had evaporated. You did this. He spat at me, voice low and poisonous. You ruined everything. No, I replied. You did. 8 years ago. When you decided your father was worth more gone than here. He lunged. I pivoted aside. Let him stumble forward. Let everyone see him off balance, unhinged, exactly the man from the videos. Two men from the crowd neighbors who had known Caleb for decades grabbed Zachary's arms and restrained him. "Let me go," he screamed. "Get your hands off me." I lifted the microphone again. "My brother Caleb Redford has been held captive in a shed behind this house for 4 years," I said clearly. Before that, he was financially exploited for 8. His son siphoned over $400,000 from his pension and Social Security, forged documents, bribed a doctor, attempted to poison him through gas exposure, all for land worth $6.2 million. The backyard churned with whispers. "Where is he?" someone shouted. "Where's Caleb?" I turned toward the back gate and gave a small nod. It opened, and there he was, Caleb, thinner than he'd ever been. Limping, leaning on a cane, but upright, alive. The crowd parted instinctively, forming a silent corridor. Emma saw him first. "Grandpa," she tore across the yard, crashing into him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Her sobs were raw and unfiltered. Caleb's hand came up slowly and rested on her head. "It's okay, sunshine," he whispered. "It's okay now." A soft wave of applause moved through the crowd, not celebratory, but relieved. Human. Caleb lifted his eyes and found mine. I stepped down from the stage and walked toward him. We stood face to face, identical features. Same jawline, same scar at the eyebrow. "You came," he said quietly. "I told you I would." A faint, tired smile touched his lips. "Thank you." I embraced him gently. He felt fragile but steady. "You survived," I murmured. "That was you." Behind us, sirens wailed, growing louder. 2 patrol cars rolled up first, then another. Doors opened. Officers stepped out in crisp uniforms. Detective Sarah Morgan led the mid-40s, composed, sharp-eyed. She walked straight into the yard badge visible, Zachary Redford. Zachary stopped struggling as the 2 neighbors released him into police custody. His face was gray. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, elder abuse, financial exploitation, and attempted harm," she began. "You have the right to remain silent." She cuffed him methodically. Vanessa tried to flee heels, digging into the lawn. She made it 5 steps before an officer intercepted her. "I didn't do anything," she shrieked. "This is his fault." Her wrists were cuffed behind her. Lorraine didn't attempt to run. She stood frozen hands trembling until an officer secured her quietly. Jessica was still kneeling in the grass. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "Please, I'm sorry." She too was cuffed. 4 people, 4 sets of steel bracelets, 4 lives collapsing under the weight of truth. Zachary was led past Caleb. He paused. Father and son stood a few feet apart. Caleb took one careful step forward. "You're my son," he said, voice unsteady but clear. "I raised you. I loved you. I would have given you anything." Zachary's eyes flicked up briefly, then away. "And you locked me in a shed," Caleb continued, "hoping I'd never come back." Silence stretched. "Why?" Caleb asked. Zachary swallowed. "Because you were in the way," he muttered. Caleb flinched as if struck. I placed my hand on his shoulder. "That's enough," I said softly. An officer guided Zachary toward the cruiser. He twisted back one last time. "You'll regret this," he shouted. "Both of you. I'll get out, I'll—" The car door slammed, cutting him off. Vanessa was placed in the next cruiser. Lorraine in another. Jessica in the last. Engines roared. Sirens lit up briefly. Then the vehicles pulled away. The backyard fell into a heavy quiet. Mitchell Warren approached, adjusting his tie. "Haven't seen a takedown like that in a while," he said under his breath. "It wasn't a show," I replied. He nodded. "That's why it worked." He turned to Caleb. "Mr. Redford will need your statement, but tomorrow is fine." Caleb nodded, too drained to speak. Eleanor Whitmore pushed forward through the crowd, tears streaming freely. She took Caleb's hands. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I should have known." "It's not your fault," Caleb answered gently. "I should have seen it." "No one saw it," he said. "That's how he planned it." She embraced him carefully. One by one, neighbors approached. Some crying, some apologizing, some offering rides, meals, help, anything. Caleb accepted each word quietly. Emma never released his hand. I stepped back and let him stand in the center of it all, seen, heard, believed. Mitchell came to stand beside me. "You did good," he said. "We're not done," I replied. "No," he agreed. "But the worst of it is over." I looked at Caleb, at Emma clutching his hand, at neighbors forming a protective circle around him. "Yeah," I said, "it is." The next morning, the Millbrook Police Department smelled like burnt coffee and old files. Caleb and I sat side by side in a narrow interview room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The walls were a dull beige, scuffed and tired. My brother looked smaller than he had the day before. Thinner, more fragile, like the adrenaline that had carried him through the arrest had finally drained away, leaving the full weight of 8 stolen years pressing down on him. Detective Sarah Morgan sat across from us, laptop open, recorder blinking red between us. Mitchell Warren stood near the window, briefcase resting on the table, a USB drive balanced between his fingers. "Mr. Redford," Detective Morgan said gently, eyes on Caleb. "I need you to walk me through everything. Start with 2017. Caleb swallowed. His hands trembled in his lap. I reached over and wrapped my fingers around his wrist. He glanced at me, steadied his breathing, and began. "My wife Ruth passed away in March of 2017, he said. "Cancer. After the funeral, Zachary moved back in. Said he wanted to help. Said I shouldn't be alone." His voice wavered, but didn't break. "Within a month, he'd taken my phone. Said he'd handle the bill. Then he changed the house number. Cut off the internet. I couldn't call anyone. Not friends, not neighbors, not even Gideon." Mitchell stepped forward, opening a folder. "We've obtained bank records," he said. "Beginning April 2017. Caleb Redford's pension $2,400 per month and his Social Security benefits $1,850 per month were redirected into an account controlled solely by Zachary Redford." Detective Morgan's fingers flew across the keyboard. "That's over $4,000 monthly, $41,000 per year," Mitchell confirmed. "Over 8 years, that totals approximately $410,000. Caleb shook his head slowly. "I didn't know. Zachary told me the deposits were automatic. He gave me $20 a week for groceries. Said the rest was covering taxes, repairs, medical bills." Detective Morgan's voice softened. "And the confinement?" Caleb's gaze dropped to the tabletop. "May of 2021, he whispered. He said I was wandering too much, embarrassing him. He moved me into the shed, installed an electronic lock. There was a mattress, 1 light bulb, no bathroom." He paused. "Sometimes he forgot to bring food. Sometimes the water bottle was empty for 2 days. I felt my jaw tighten. I had seen the shed, slept in it. But hearing it laid out in a sterile police station made it sharper, colder." Mitchell opened another file. "We also have evidence of a forged power of attorney dated 2017, a fraudulent quitclaim deed dated May 16, 2025, and a life insurance policy valued at $750,000, purchased in December 2023, naming Zachary Redford as sole beneficiary." Detective Morgan looked up. "And the alleged plan, they were going to stage a gas leak," I said. "Make it look accidental, collect the insurance, then sell the land for $6.2 million. Morgan nodded grimly. "We have the recorded confession from the garage. Zachary Redford discussing the tragic accident, the timeline, the Mexican condo. It's all on record." She leaned back slightly. "Here's where things stand. Zachary Redford is being charged with conspiracy to commit harm, elder abuse, financial exploitation, fraud, and forgery. Vanessa Redford, conspiracy and fraud-related charges. Lorraine Sullivan, conspiracy and accessory. Jessica Sullivan, forgery, bribery, and conspiracy." Caleb exhaled slowly. "I just want it to be over." "It will be," Mitchell assured him. "But we need documentation, medical reports, financial statements, witness testimony. The district attorney wants everything airtight." An hour later, a state-appointed physician arrived. Not the compromised doctor Zachary had mentioned. An independent examiner. Caleb was escorted into a side room while I paced the narrow hallway staring at a bulletin board covered in outdated safety notices. When the doctor emerged, his expression was sober. "Severe malnutrition," he said to Detective Morgan. "Muscle atrophy. Infected sores on both feet. Signs consistent with prolonged dehydration. There are also indicators of psychological trauma, likely post-traumatic stress." Morgan nodded and typed steadily. "We'll attach the report to the case file." By noon, the interviews were complete. Zachary, Vanessa, Lorraine, and Jessica were all being held without bail pending arraignment. With video evidence, financial records, and medical documentation, Mitchell called it strong, open and shut, he said quietly. Caleb and I stepped outside. The sunlight felt almost aggressive after the fluorescent glare. Caleb squinted, raising a hand to shield his eyes like he had to relearn how to stand in open air. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you rest," I said. "We find you somewhere safe. We get you healthy. And we let the system do its job." He stopped on the sidewalk and stared at his hands. "Gideon, I don't have anything. No money. No access to my house. No, you have me," I said firmly. "You have Emma. And you still own that land. $6.2 million worth. Zachary never got it." Caleb's eyes filled. "I don't even have a bank account anymore," he admitted. He closed it. I reached into my wallet. Inside were a few bills and a wrinkled gas station receipt. I pulled out a $20 bill, hesitated, then tucked it back in, and instead folded a 10 and a 5 together. I pressed the $15 into his palm. $15, I said. "It's not much, but it's yours. No one's controlling it. No one's skimming it. It's a start." Caleb stared at the bills like they were something sacred. His shoulders began to shake. Then he laughed a broken, breathless sound. $15, he murmured. "After 8 years. $15. I slipped my arm around his shoulders. "We'll recover the rest," I said. "Every dollar. Every acre. I promise." He nodded, clutching the money carefully, as if it might disappear. As we walked toward my truck, I glanced back at the station doors. Inside, Zachary sat in a holding cell, facing charges that could keep him behind bars for decades. Vanessa, Lorraine, Jessica, all caught in the web they helped spin. But out here beneath open sky and unfiltered sunlight, Caleb was free. And in his trembling hand, $15 felt like more wealth than 6 million ever could. A week after the arrests, Caleb and I stood in the living room of 342 Oakwood Drive garbage bags piled by the door. The house smelled like stale beer and cigarette smoke, years of Zachary's occupation layered into the walls. Caleb moved slowly, methodically, picking up empty pizza boxes and crushed soda cans. He didn't say much. He didn't need to. Emma sat on the stairs watching us. She'd been quiet since the party. Not withdrawn exactly, just careful, like she was still learning what it felt like to be safe. "Grandpa," she asked softly. "Is Daddy coming back?" Caleb froze, trash bag in hand. I walked over and crouched beside her. "No, sweetheart," I said. "Your father is in a place where people who hurt others have to stay. For a long time." She nodded slowly. "Good." The word was so small, so certain, it broke something in my chest. That afternoon, Mitchell Warren called. His voice was clipped professional. "Plea deals are off the table. Zachary, Vanessa, Lorraine, and Jessica all rejected the DA's offers. They're going to trial." "When?" I asked. "September. Judge Brennan set the date this morning. You'll need to prepare Caleb and Emma for testimony. I glanced at my brother, who was staring out the window, lost in thought. "He'll be ready. There's something else," Mitchell said. "Zachary made a supervised call from the county jail yesterday. He tried to contact Caleb. The call was recorded." My jaw tightened. "What did he say?" "Hot threats. Vague but clear enough. I'm sending you the transcript." When the email arrived, I read it twice. Then I showed it to Caleb. "You think you won, old man? I've got friends. People who owe me. You'll never be safe. Neither will that little girl." Caleb's hands trembled as he read. "He's still trying to scare me." "He's failing," I said. "Every word he just said is witness intimidation. We'll add it to the charges." Caleb looked at me, eyes hollow. "What if he's serious? What if he does have people?" "Yeah, then they'll go to jail too," I said firmly. "Zachary's finished Caleb. He just doesn't know it yet." But the call rattled him. For the next few days, he jumped at every sound: the mailman, a car door, a neighbor's dog barking. I installed new locks on the doors, set up a security camera by the porch. It wasn't much, but it helped. On June 3rd, everything exploded again. I was in the kitchen making sandwiches when I heard the doorbell. Emma ran to answer it before I could stop her. When I reached the door, my blood went cold. Lorraine Sullivan stood on the porch, arms crossed, gray hair, pulled back eyes sharp as broken glass. She was out on bail, $10,000 posted by some distant cousin. "Emma," she said, her voice honey-sweet and venomous. "Come here, sweetheart. Grandma needs to talk to you." Emma stepped back closer to me. "No." Lorraine's smile tightened. "Your daddy's in trouble because your grandfather lied. Don't you want to help your daddy?" "My grandfather didn't lie," Emma said, voice steady. "I saw everything. I was there." I put my hand on Emma's shoulder. "You need to leave Lorraine. Now." She ignored me, eyes locked on Emma. "You're just a child. You don't understand what's happening. When your daddy gets out, he's going to take you back. And we're going to be a family again. Zachary's not getting out," I said coldly. "And you're violating a no-contact order just by standing here." Lorraine's face twisted. "You think you can keep me from my granddaughter? I have rights. Grandparents' rights. I'll take you to court if I have to." Before I could respond, Caleb appeared behind me. He looked smaller than Lorraine, frailer, but his voice was steady. "You locked me in a shed for 4 years, he said quietly. "You stole my money. You watched your daughter and son-in-law plan to harm me, and you did nothing. You have no rights." Lorraine's mouth opened-closed. For a moment, she looked almost human, almost guilty. Then her expression hardened. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "All of you." She turned and walked down the driveway. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mitchell Warren. "She was just here," I said. "Lorraine." She tried to intimidate Emma, threatened to sue for custody. Mitchell's reply was ice. "I'll have a warrant issued within the hour. She's done." By evening, Lorraine was back in custody. No bail this time. Mitchell called to confirm she'd violated the no-contact order, attempted witness tampering, and made credible threats. The judge revoked her release. She'd stay locked up until trial. Caleb and I sat on the porch that night watching fireflies blink in the dark. Emma was asleep upstairs. Finally, Mitchell had arranged for a child psychologist to visit twice a week. The woman said Emma was resilient, but she'd need time. I want to raise her," Caleb said suddenly. "Permanently. I want to be her legal guardian." I looked at him. "You'd be a good father to her. Can we do it?" he asked. "Legally?" I thought about Zachary locked up, Vanessa facing 7 years minimum, Lorraine and Jessica conspirators in a scheme to harm an old man for money. None of them were fit to raise a child. "We'll petition the court," I said. "Mitchell can file the paperwork. With Zachary and Vanessa both facing prison time, You'll have a strong case. Caleb nodded, eyes distant. I just want her to be safe, to have a normal life. She will, I promised. We'll make sure of it. We sat in silence for a while. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mitchell. Call me, it's urgent. I stepped inside, dialed him back. What's wrong? Mitchell's voice was calm, but I could hear the weight behind it. There's someone else with a claim to Emma. Someone who might complicate things. My stomach dropped. Who? Caleb's daughter, Linda. I went still. Linda, the daughter Caleb hadn't seen in 6 years. The daughter who'd left Emma with Zachary and Vanessa and disappeared. She's alive, I asked. She is. And she just contacted my office. She wants custody of Emma. I closed my eyes, exhaled slowly. When? She's flying in next week. We'll need to meet with her, assess her situation, and figure out what's best for Emma. He paused. This could get complicated, Gideon. Everything about this case is complicated, I muttered. One more thing won't break us. But as I hung up and walked back outside, I couldn't shake the weight settling in my chest. Caleb wanted to raise Emma. Linda, wherever she'd been, wanted her daughter back. And Emma, caught in the middle, deserved stability. I sat back down beside my brother. He looked at me, concern flickering in his eyes. What did Mitchell say? I hesitated. Then I told him. Caleb's face went pale. Linda, after 6 years. She's coming back, I said quietly. And she wants Emma. Caleb stared at the dark street, his hands gripping the armrest. Linda, after 6 years. She's coming back, I said quietly. And she wants to be part of Emma's life. Caleb's voice trembled. Emma's my granddaughter. Zachary's in prison. Vanessa's facing 7 years. What does Linda want? She wants to help, I said. She's Emma's aunt. And after 6 years of running, she wants to come home. Caleb nodded slowly. Then we meet her. We listen. And we figure out what's best for Emma. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't about Zachary or Vanessa or Lorraine or even us. It was about Emma. And she deserved a family that would protect her no matter what. On June 10th, I sat in Mitchell Warren's office watching the second hand crawl across the wall clock. Caleb was beside me, hands folded, jaw tight. He hadn't slept much the night before. Neither had I. She'll be here in 5 minutes, Mitchell said, glancing at his laptop. Linda Redford, clean record, steady employment. She's been working as a registered nurse in Portland, Oregon for the past 4 years. I'd already done my own digging. Linda Redford, 42 years old, born and raised in Millbrook. Left Tennessee in 2019. Before that, she'd been working part-time at a local clinic. Then one day she vanished. Why did she leave? I asked. Mitchell pulled a file from his desk. She says Zachary threatened her. Told her if she didn't disappear, she'd end up in the same shed as her father. Caleb flinched. She knew I was in danger. She suspected, Mitchell said carefully. But Zachary had control of the house, the money, everything. Linda felt powerless. Caleb's voice was barely a whisper. She's my daughter. She should have called someone. Zachary isolated her the same way he isolated you, I said quietly. Fear is a weapon. He used it on both of you. The door opened. A woman stepped in, thin auburn hair pulled into a loose ponytail, dark circles under her eyes. She wore jeans, a plain gray sweater, and sneakers. When she saw Caleb, her face crumpled. Dad, she whispered. Caleb stood slowly. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Linda crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. I'm so sorry, she choked out. I should have stayed. I should have fought. You're here now, Caleb said, his own voice breaking. That's what matters. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I didn't know what Zachary was doing to you. I swear. I thought you were okay. I didn't know he locked you away. He made sure no one knew, I said, handing her a tissue. That's how predators work. Linda turned to me. You must be Gideon, Dad's brother, the one who saved him. I just did what family does, I said. She shook her head. I should have done it. But Zachary, he said if I came back, if I called anyone, he'd make sure I never saw Dad again. I believed him. I was a coward. You were scared, Caleb said gently. There's a difference. Mitchell gestured to the chairs. Let's sit. We need to discuss Emma. Linda nodded, sinking into a seat. How is she? Does she hate me? She doesn't hate you, I said. She barely remembers you. She was 3 when you left. She's 9 now. Linda's hands twisted in her lap. I want to see her. I want to be part of her life. I'm her aunt. I'm family. And now that Zachary and Vanessa are locked up, Emma needs someone. Caleb looked at her. I'm petitioning for custody. Emma's my granddaughter. I'm her legal guardian until the court decides otherwise. Linda nodded quickly. I'm not trying to take her away from you, Dad. I just want to help. I want to be here for both of you. Mitchell made a note. We'll file a petition for Caleb as primary guardian. Linda, you can request visitation rights as Emma's aunt. If you stay in Millbrook, that would strengthen your case. I'm not leaving, Linda said firmly. Not again. That afternoon, we brought Emma to the house. Linda waited in the living room, pacing. When Emma walked in, she stopped. Aunt Linda, Emma said quietly. Linda dropped to her knees. Hi, sweetheart. Do you remember me? Emma hesitated, then nodded slowly. A little. You used to give me ice cream. Linda laughed through her tears. I did. You always wanted chocolate. Emma stepped closer. Why did you leave? Linda's face tightened. Your father, my brother, he scared me, and I was wrong to leave. I should have stayed and protected you and Grandpa. I'm sorry, Emma. Emma looked at her for a long moment. Then she walked forward and hugged her. Linda held her, sobbing quietly. Caleb and I stood in the doorway. I felt something loosen in my chest. She's a good kid, I said quietly. She deserves better than what Zachary gave her, Caleb replied. Over the next few days, the case exploded into the national news. The $180 million highway project linked to elder abuse scheme. Tennessee man imprisoned for 4 years by his own son. The article was everywhere: cable news, social media, newspapers. My phone started ringing. Reporters from Nashville, Memphis, even a producer from a true crime podcast. I blocked every number. The public has court records, I said flatly. That's all they need. This family has been through enough. Mitchell called a few days later. The Tennessee Department of Child Protective Services wants to use Emma's testimony anonymously as a training video to help caseworkers recognize elder abuse in families. Caleb looked at me. I looked at Emma, who was coloring at the kitchen table with Linda. If it helps someone else, Caleb said quietly, then yes. On June 18th, Mitchell sent another update. New land appraisal, $6.35 million. The publicity had driven up interest. What had been worth $6.2 million in May was now worth more. Caleb stared at the number. All of this suffering, over money, over greed, I corrected. Money's just a tool. Zachary weaponized it. The same day, we received notice from the court. Trial date August 15th, 2025. Zachary's new lawyer had filed a motion claiming entrapment. He argued that I'd illegally recorded Zachary manipulated the situation and violated his rights by impersonating Caleb. Mitchell wasn't worried. Entrapment requires coercion. You didn't force Zachary to commit a crime, you documented crimes he'd already committed. Judge Brennan will see through this. One evening, the 4 of us sat on the porch, Caleb, Linda, Emma, and me. Fireflies blinked in the warm June air. Emma was leaning against Linda, half asleep. What happens after the trial? Linda asked quietly. We sell the land, Caleb said. $6.35 million. After taxes, legal fees, and everything else, we'll walk away with about $4.8 million. Linda's eyes widened. Dad! It's for you and Emma, Caleb said. You'll never have to run again. You'll never have to be afraid. I don't want the money, Linda said softly. I just want my family back. Caleb smiled. You have both. I looked out at the quiet street thinking about Zachary locked in a cell, Vanessa waiting for sentencing, Lorraine and Jessica facing their own reckonings. They'd gambled everything on greed, and they'd lost. But here on this porch with a father and daughter reunited, and a 9-year-old girl finally safe, we'd won. Not money, not revenge. Family, if you've stayed with me through this family story, through the darkness of that shed and the light we fought to bring back into it, then I want to leave you with something deeper than just a courtroom verdict. For 30 years, I worked as a private investigator. I chased criminals across state lines. I built cases brick by brick. I believed evil wore a clear face, that predators lurked in alleyways, not at holiday dinners. But this family story taught me something I should have known all along. The most dangerous threats don't always break in through the front door. Sometimes they already have a key. When my brother called me from that shed, weak, isolated, stripped of his dignity, I didn't hear a victim. I heard a man who had trusted too much. Caleb trusted his son because that's what fathers do. He ignored the warning signs because love can blur the edges of reality. In so many grandpa stories, we see older men as pillars, strong, unshakable. But the truth is, even the strongest grandfather can be dismantled quietly, piece by piece, by someone who understands his blind spots. This wasn't just a crime. It was erosion, isolation, control, financial exploitation disguised as help. If you take one thing from this family story, let it be this: when someone starts cutting off access to phones, money, neighbors, or friends, it is never an accident. It is strategy. God gives us instincts for a reason. When something feels wrong, it usually is. And in many grandpa stories, the tragedy isn't just the betrayal, it's the silence that surrounds it. The neighbors who assume everything is fine. The relatives who don't want to interfere. The friends who stop calling because they're told he's resting or he wants privacy. Don't wait for proof when your instincts are already screaming. This family story isn't about revenge in the way people expect. Yes, some might call it justice. Some might label it a dad revenge moment. But to me, it was survival. It was stepping in before a man disappeared completely. It was restoring dignity to someone who had been reduced to a shadow in his own backyard. And let me say this clearly, I am not a hero. I was late. 8 years late. Pride, distance, old arguments, those things cost time we never get back. In many grandpa stories, regret shows up after the funeral. I was fortunate enough to arrive before that chapter closed. If you have a parent, a grandparent, or an elderly neighbor you haven't checked on in a while, call them. Visit them. Ask real questions. Look past the polite smiles. Elder abuse doesn't always look like bruises. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like a bank account you're no longer allowed to see. That's why I tell grandpa stories like this. Not for shock, not for drama, but because awareness saves lives. If this family story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of someone you love, don't just move on to the next video. Do something, reach out, start a conversation. One phone call changed everything for my brother. One phone call might change everything for someone in your life. If this message meant something to you, leave a comment and tell me your thoughts. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe. If you want to continue hearing more grandpa stories and powerful family story journeys like this, stories that challenge us, wake us up, and remind us what really matters. Thank you for staying until the end. I know this wasn't an easy road. And one final note, parts of this narrative include dramatized elements created for educational and storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real individuals or events is coincidental, but the lessons behind it are sincere. Stay alert. Stay compassionate, protect your family, and never ignore the warning signs.